Chapter 41, Section 41. Okay, please wait a moment, Xiao Ran said. Uncle Sakamoto brought over a small sign and set it in front of Xiao Ran, then turned away to busy himself. At that moment, a nearby pair of uncles began talking, and their conversation drifted to Xiao Ran's ears. I heard Inuyashiki moved into a new house recently, one said. He moved in a few days ago. You weren't here the other day. Inuyashiki seems pretty pleased with his new place. The other replied. Ha! Old man Inuyashiki still has it in him. He can still afford to move, unlike me, stuck in the house my father left me. Inuyashiki isn't exactly living easy either. After moving, he took on a 30-year mortgage, and he's getting on in years. The company is cutting staff lately. Who knows if he'll be affected? If he gets laid off at his age, that would be awful. He wouldn't find a job outside. Yeah, I hope old man Inuyashiki can get through this all right. Inuyashiki? Xiao Ran thought. Is that the drunk uncle from last time? Surnames with Inu, meaning dog, aren't unusual here, but Inuyashiki as a surname was unfamiliar to him until a dozen associations clicked into place. Inuyashiki Ichiro, the old man from the anime Inuyashiki, a rare show with an elderly protagonist. Ichiro, nearly 60, lived a life estranged from his company and family, then was diagnosed terminally ill and slipped into self-destruction. Hitting rock bottom, he had a strange encounter one night that transformed him into a half-man, half-machine, being with power far beyond a normal human's. Unlike many who would use such power for themselves, Inuyashiki used it to help others. There was another who met the same fate, Shishigami Hiro. He gained the same abilities but used them to indulge darker impulses, harming those he disliked. Two men, same transformation, two divergent paths. One chose good, the other evil. A great battle was inevitable, and of course the story favored the protagonist. Inuyashiki Ichiro prevailed in the end. Xiao Ran had seen the movie and the anime in his previous life. He remembered being impressed by Shishigami Hiro. As for Ichiro, he'd found the old man too downtrodden to be satisfying. So the drunk uncle might be Inuyashiki Ichiro, Xiao Ran thought. If he wasn't out tonight, could he already have encountered a Kryptonian? Xiao Ran triggered his super hearing. The world's sounds rushed in, and he narrowed the focus to the city so his superbrain could process less noise. Monitoring the entire globe at once would be exhausting. Soon he heard Inuyashiki Ichiro's voice. Not in the park, but at home, hiding in the bathroom smoking. He hadn't encountered whatever Xiao Ran meant by Kryptonian yet. Xiao Ran shut off his super hearing. Keeping it on constantly was tiring, and with the world's composition so complex right now, the last thing he wanted was some old monster picking up his presence. Inside the izakaya, people chatted about work and gossip. Xiao Ran ate while listening. Around 11:30 he finished, slipped out, walked to a secluded spot, and shot into the sky, returning home silently at near supersonic speed. Time to eat, he said. In the bedroom, Xiao Ran woke Yoko Okino, who had been sleeping. Ooh, what time is it? She mumbled, groggy. 11:33. Eat quickly, then rest early, Xiao Ran told her, checking his watch. Oh, Yoko Okino said, nodding. She went to the bathroom to wash her face and felt a little more awake. After showering, Xiao Ran returned to bed in his pajamas and lay down. He wondered which American comic world he'd be sent to this time. He closed his eyes and within seconds fell asleep. In the void, a vast doorway labeled the American comics opened slowly. Xiao Ran blinked and was pulled through. The scene shifted. He sat bolt upright on a tattered bed and looked around. The room was run down. Everything felt discarded, something left to rot on a garbage heap. Where am I? He wondered. A quick flood of information slid into his mind. He, Xiao Ran, had been pruned and placed in a portion of the void, known as the Void Land. He'd been here a long time, though time itself was meaningless in the void. Void Land? Am I a time criminal pruned by the Time Variance Authority? He thought, bemused by the identity the void had given him. The terms made it clear he was in a Marvel-side scenario. Last time had been DC, now it seemed to be Marvel's turn. He checked the achievement conditions for clearing this world. Seeing Void Land and Time Variance Authority had already tipped him off. The requirement appeared on his mental HUD. Clear achievement, independently kill Cassandra. Cassandra. With the help of his superbrain, Xiao Ran summoned a clearer image. Cassandra, bald woman, the twin sister of Professor X. In Marvel lore, she was also a time criminal pruned by the TVA, able to leave the void at will, but choosing to stay. Her powers mirrored and exceeded Professor X's. Telepathy, telekinesis, levitation, the manipulation of living and inanimate matter, and even the ability to manipulate DNA and construct bodies for herself. In many ways, she was a multifunctional, more powerful version of Professor X. She had almost no weaknesses. Almost. In some portrayals, she was vulnerable to devices that block psychic powers. In one story, the Juggernaut's helmet, which blocked psychic interference, restrained her. Many of her abilities seemed rooted in psychic energy. Without that energy, her other powers faltered. What irritated Xiao Ran most was that Cassandra clearly knew of this weakness, but she kept the helmet instead of destroying it. Why would she deliberately leave herself a failsafe? Was she arrogant or just unstable? Judging by the way she acted in the movie, her mind did seem troubled. Perhaps, as Xiao Ran had suspected earlier, she was simply unstable, hunting for thrills by deliberately leaving Juggernaut's helmet behind. "It looks like I landed in the Deadpool and Wolverine world," he muttered. He left the room and stepped outside. The space he'd been occupying was actually just the upper floor of a building, sliced off and transported here, sitting on a small hill. A vast plain stretched away in one direction. Beyond that, a crooked forest. To the other side, a desolate desert. Scattered everywhere were the wrecked remains of buildings, submarines, and warships, dilapidated hulks strewn about as if tossed aside. The environment of this voidland is unusually eclectic, Xiao Ran thought. He glanced down at his clothes. He'd been given a ragged, post-apocalyptic outfit, a dusty old shirt with a yellow, tattered cloth draped over it, and a pair of earth-yellow trousers tied with rope in place of a belt. He didn't like the look. If he was going to move around in this world, he'd prefer something more presentable. Besides, the Voidland contained a monster called Eros. Xiao Ran wasn't sure whether that thing could devour a steel body. Given that Eros had roamed this place for countless years, it might well have eaten beings far tougher than he was now. Best to keep a low profile. So he didn't take to the sky. He ran along the ground at a fast clip. After about 10 minutes, he found a house that had been ripped from somewhere else and tossed into the void. Inside was a cloakroom with racks of clothing. He picked a suit that fit well, a clean light blue jacket over a white shirt, shiny leather shoes, and adjusted his hair in a mirror until he was satisfied. As he stepped back out, he nearly bumped into a hooded figure coming in. They froze at the doorway, staring at each other. "Buddy, no bad intentions. I'm just checking for usable supplies," the hooded man said, and then pushed his hood back. The face was startlingly familiar. "Captain America?" Xiao Ran blurted. "What Captain America?" the man replied, looking about and then pointing at himself. "You mean me? I'm Human Torch. More like Captain America, right?" Xiao Ran stopped short. Not Captain America, then. Human Torch. He had appeared in a movie recently and had been known for a foul mouth, and in this world his look apparently resembled the captain. Mistakes like that were understandable. "Jonathan?" Xiao Ran tried. Human Torch peered at him. "You know me?" "You look like someone I know," Xiao Ran said. "There are so many crossovers in this damned place. You shouldn't be surprised by anything." Human Torch grinned. He'd met other versions of himself in other places, but would never admit that a weird lizard-faced variant was another him. "Hey man, can I come in and look around? Unless you've already claimed the place, then forget I said anything." Since arriving in the Voidland, Human Torch had been forced to rein in his old habit of being abrasive. There were too many people stronger than him here, and with Eros about, he didn't dare advertise himself by flying. He'd become noticeably low-key. "Of course, help yourself," Xiao Ran said, outwardly generous. Inside, he was considering whether to use one of his ability extraction opportunities on Human Torch. He currently had 3 extraction chances available, 2 rewards from clearing the previous American Comics world, and 1 given for entering this new one. He had already decided to reserve 1 for Cassandra. That left 2 he could spend. There was no need to hoard them. Each new American Comics world would hand him at least 3 chances, so he could afford to use them. Who to pick? Deadpool's regenerative ability was tempting. Cassandra had similar powers but used borrowed DNA and seemed less potent than Deadpool. Taking Deadpool's power might be redundant. Other mutants in this world didn't excite him. Fireman's control of fire sounded useful against flame users like Human Torch, but was otherwise ordinary. Gambit's ability to charge objects with explosive energy was flashy, but of little practical use to him. Juggernaut was interesting, not for raw strength, which a few hundred tons paled beside the incredible strength he'd experienced from a day in the sun, but for Juggernaut's reputed unstoppable charge. If the Juggernaut here had that specific unstoppable momentum, Xiao Ran would consider extracting it. If not, he'd pass. So for now, his list of candidates was Cassandra, Mandatory, Deadpool, Human Torch, and Juggernaut. He still needed to decide whether to spend one of his 2 free extractions now and on whom. He also wondered about hidden achievements in this world, like in the Man of Steel world where a hidden goal was to kill 10 Kryptonians. Maybe here there was an achievement for killing 100 Deadpool variants, or 100 mutants. He could test that later. Human Torch thanked him and wandered into the house. As Xiao Ran watched him go, practical concerns crept back in. With his Kryptonian bloodline, he could normally draw stellar energy to keep going without eating, but this voidland had no sun, so he couldn't rely on that power source. That made things difficult. If he could find a device like those used by the TVA to traverse universes, he could leave the voidland at will, but every such device here was broken or missing. The voidland had everything, except a perfectly intact gateway device. For now, he'd have to make do. He straightened his suit and headed out to explore, weighing his choices and the people he might encounter next. Cassandra had a sling ring, a sorcerer's tool that could open dimensional portals and even leave the voidland. Of course, only if you knew how to use it. Cassandra knew how. Maybe I should find her ahead of time, Xiao Ran thought. Just then, the Human Torch came out of the house carrying a bulging backpack. Their refrigerator had a lot of good stuff. Are you sure you don't want any of it? He asked. No, you can take it all. I don't need those things, Xiao Ran replied, shaking his head. But I do need a favor. What? Tell me first. I won't help with something I can't do, Human Torch said. He wasn't about to take on anything too risky. Don't worry, it's simple, Xiao Ran said. Just point me in the right direction. Tell me where Cassandra's camp is. Oh my god, you're going to find that crazy woman? Human Torch protested. Buddy, believe me, no matter why you're going there, she won't let you have things your way. You'll only be going to your death. You don't need to worry. Just tell me where it is, Xiao Ran insisted. He was wary of Cassandra because of her telepathy. The others could be dangerous or useful, but they weren't on the same level as her. Human Torch shrugged helplessly. All right then, since you insist, I'll tell you. He pointed in a direction. Keep walking this way. About 20 kilometers. That's where Cassandra's camp is. She and her lot are there. Thanks, Xiao Ran nodded, felt the wind under his feet, kicked up a cloud of dust, and vanished toward the horizon. Human Torch stood there, blank-faced. Good heavens, did I forget to ask his name? He wouldn't be an Asian Quicksilver, would he? Human Torch, Jonathan, knew Quicksilver. He and some like-minded companions had formed a small group in this voidland. Quicksilver had once been one of them. Past tense, because Quicksilver was dead. The enemies here were too powerful. Speed alone couldn't save him. Jonathan considered his own survival luck. He'd been captured by Cassandra's group once and escaped, while Quicksilver hadn't been so fortunate. In this hellish place, everyone eventually met their end, by villains like Cassandra's crew or by monsters like Eros. Dying peacefully was a luxury nobody could afford. Jonathan raised a bottle of soda, toasted toward the direction Xiao Ran had gone, and took a long swig. Good luck, he muttered, belching contentedly. Xiao Ran ran about 30 kilometers in the direction Pathinhil. Human Torch had indicated before he saw the camp, a settlement built out of the gigantic corpse of Ant-Man. He stopped a little way off to watch, then walked toward the main gate. A cluster of mutants gathered inside noticed a lone figure approaching. Someone's coming, a lookout called. How many? Another asked. One. Just one. Is he new? Those who heard the report put down what they were doing and crowded toward the entrance. The camp's main gate was literally 2 colossal hands from Ant-Man's corpse. As the hands parted, Xiao Ran stepped through. Hello, he called with an easy smile. I heard this is a home for mutants, so I came to take a look. The muttered responses were not friendly. A burst of red mist announced a new arrival, a figure with crimson skin and a tail materialized with a pop. He tilted his head, studying Xiao Ran. Red Devil. His ability was teleportation. Each blink of his appearance came with a spray of red haze. Rumor said he'd lived 1,000 years, and that depictions of Satan were inspired by him. The devil watched the young Asian boy with interest. "What do you want here?" "I've come to join you," Xiao Ran said. "I heard people with special abilities are welcome." A large, burly man dropped down from a second-story shelf. He wore a thick helmet and was all muscle, nearly 2 meters tall. Juggernaut, one of Xiao Ran's alternative targets. Unlike the hulking caricature from a movie, this Juggernaut looked more like a massive, heavily built man than a walking tank. "We only want people who can pull their weight. What's your power?" Juggernaut asked in a low voice. Xiao Ran grinned. For a second, crimson light flared from his eyes, and a beam of heat shot out, smashing a massive bone at the top of the camp with a thunderous crack. Dust and fragments rained down. The red glow faded from his eyes. "How's that? Am I qualified?" he asked. Inside, the mutants murmured at the display. Red Devil looked both surprised and amused. "Not bad. Are you Cyclops? An Asian Scott Summers?" "No," Xiao Ran answered, smiling. "My name isn't Scott, and I'm not Cyclops." Juggernaut and Red Devil exchanged a look, then turned toward the depths of the camp, toward Ant-Man's skull. Slowly, the ancient armor helmet creaked open, revealing the withered, enormous skull inside. The sight was eerie and shocking, a desiccated, half-embedded relic at the center of this brutal stronghold. Dust and grit whipped through the air, and the vague silhouette of a person in a wheelchair gradually resolved. Xiao Ran looked up, curious. Everyone in the camp had snapped to attention. This was the arrival of their leader, the strongest mutant in this void land. Through the flying dust came a bald woman in a yellowish-brown trench coat and sharp, piercing eyes. Under her sat a metal wheelchair that looked oddly familiar. Professor X's wheelchair, at least like one from a certain period. Then, to everyone's surprise, the woman rose from the chair. She wasn't crippled at all. "Welcome." Cassandra, who looked uncannily like a cosplay of Professor X, spread her arms and smiled. "Today, we have a new brother joining us." "Is she your lord?" Xiao Ran asked Juggernaut, standing nearby. "The lord prefers people who don't talk too much. Best to keep your mouth shut," Juggernaut said kindly. Xiao Ran grinned and watched Cassandra walk down the steps. For some reason, he kept thinking she reminded him of Guyi, the bald head, the coat, something of the posture. Maybe she was an avid cosplayer. If she put on a helmet and floated in the air, he joked to himself, she could pass for Magneto. He remembered hearing the name in Resistance stories. Apparently, Magneto was supposed to be dead. What a shame. Xiao Ran liked the idea of magnetic powers. Cassandra reached the bottom and turned to him. "What's your name?" "Xiao Ran, ma'am," he answered, smiling. Cassandra nodded, then called loudly to her followers, "Let's welcome Xiao to our family." Xiao Ran noted, half amused, that only Clark, who had a super brain, ever managed to pronounce his full name properly. Everyone else just used his surname. Red Devil glanced at him a few times, trying to see if there was something familiar. Around them, mutants and ordinary thugs cheered. This camp contained both. The mutants were clearly above the ordinary toughs in status. Those thugs were small fry here. After Cassandra, the highest-ranking members were Red Devil and Juggernaut, followed by Fireman, Toad, Sabretooth, and the rest. Cassandra raised a hand, and the noise died down. She turned to Xiao Ran with a meaningful look and smiled. "Xiao, from now on, we're our own people." She extended her hand toward him. Juggernaut and the others watched with interest. Xiao Ran acted casual and took her hand. A system prompt chimed in his mind. "Do you want to extract the character entry for Cassandra Nova Xavier?" Detected multiple character entries for target. Please select one to extract. A list unfolded before him. Coes Enthusiast. Your cosplay looks lifelike, exactly like the target herself. Professor X's sister. You are Professor X's sister, sharing the same telepathic abilities. Gender changes to female. King of the Voidland. You are the king of the Voidland. All living things within the Voidland will instinctively feel closeness to you and be more likely to obey. True, Big Boss. You are the true Big Boss Cassandra. Gain all of Cassandra's abilities. The first entry was useless for his purposes. The third was attractive but too limited. What he really wanted was the fourth. System, extract the true Big Boss entry, Xiao Ran commanded in his head. Ding. Extraction successful. Instantly, he felt the new powers slot into place. As he'd suspected, the core of Cassandra's abilities derived from psychic power. And at that moment, he sensed a probing mental force sliding toward his mind. What's in my head is not for you to see. With a thought, Xiao Ran erected a psychic barrier. It snapped up easily and blocked the invasion. The reason, he realized, was simple. Extracting Cassandra's entry had given him all her abilities, including a powerful telepathy, and his own psychic reserves were not negligible. Kryptonians were generally physical types, and their psychic quality was lower, but that didn't mean their quantity was tiny. It was like comparing a pound of cotton to a pound of iron, equal in weight but not in density. Psychics like Cassandra had psychic power of superalloy quality and huge density. Xiao Ran's own psychic power had been more like cotton in quality, but comparable in total volume. Now, with Cassandra's abilities layered onto his own, the overlap actually made his telepathic presence stronger than hers in that instant. The barrier held effortlessly. Cassandra, feeling the failed intrusion, frowned slightly. She looked at him long and hard, then withdrew her probe. Smiling, she said aloud, "No problem. I hope you enjoy your stay here." "Thank you." Xiao Ran smiled and let go of Red Devil's hand as if nothing unusual had happened. Cassandra turned and climbed back upstairs, pausing only to tell Red Devil to prepare a room for Xiao Ran on the second floor. Red Devil nodded. "Follow me." Xiao Ran returned the nod and went with him. The second floor turned out to be built along Ant-Man's arm, small houses and corridors grafted to the giant body like a ramshackle village. Red Devil led him down a corridor to an empty door, opened it, and ushered him inside. "This is your room. If you have any questions, come find me, or Juggernaut," Red Devil said. "Actually, I do have one." Xiao Ran smiled. "Living inside such a large corpse, won't Eros be able to sense you because of it?" "No." Red Devil's expression didn't change. "Eros only devours the living. This body has been dead for who knows how long. As long as we stay inside it, Eros can't detect us. But if you use your powers often while you're in the camp, the energy fluctuations will attract him. So use your abilities as little as possible here." "Understood. I have no more questions." Xiao Ran nodded, and Red Devil left without another word. Xiao Ran looked around his room. It matched the rest of the place's void land aesthetic. Dilapidated steel frames draped with tattered cloth, everything on the verge of collapse. The bed was just as battered as the one he'd woken on. A few glances were enough. He stepped back into the corridor and found Juggernaut standing a short distance away. "You're Juggernaut, right?" Xiao Ran walked up and stopped beside him. "How long have you been stuck in this place?" Juggernaut glanced at him, then turned his head and said flatly, "I don't remember. Rule number 1 for surviving here is mind your own business, or you don't live long." Xiao Ran grinned and prodded Juggernaut's arm playfully. "They call you Juggernaut because of those muscles?" Juggernaut frowned. The newcomer was irritating. Ding! An alert popped up before Xiao Ran's eyes. "Do you want to extract the character entry for target character Kane Marco?" "Multiple character entries detected for target character Kane Marco. Please select one for extraction." A list unfolded. "Juggernaut, you possess superhuman strength, capable of lifting hundreds of tons. Your defense is extreme. You can withstand artillery bombardment unharmed. You are a mutant, carrying the X gene." Xiao Ran blinked at the brief entries and couldn't hide his disappointment. That was it? No wonder he was so easily taken down by Little Wolf Girl in the movie. "What a waste," he muttered under his breath. "What?" Juggernaut asked, not hearing the mutter. "Nothing. I'm just going to look around." Xiao Ran offered an easy smile and left. Juggernaut watched him go, a prickly feeling in his chest. Had he been underestimated? He was left with the sense that he had. Xiao Ran strolled on, grumbling to himself about the lackluster Juggernaut entry. A pure mutant Juggernaut did exist in the old X-Men stories. Maybe the same person. He remembered that Juggernaut losing his mutant power near someone nicknamed Cure, bashing his head against a wall and rendering himself useless. What a waste, he thought. I should check whether Juggernaut in Deadpool 2 is a mutant or empowered by Cetorak's magic when I get the chance. He glanced at his interface. 2 extraction opportunities left. He toyed with the idea of extracting entries for Deadpool or Human Torch. Deadpool's entry might be useful. Human Torch? Besides fire attacks and flight, Xiao Ran already possessed similar abilities. Heat vision and levitation covered most of it. It didn't feel worth wasting an extraction. What he really wanted was access to other universes. This world probably connected to multiple universes. It would be far more valuable to harvest entries from other dimensions. And to get there, he needed a sling ring, the kind that opens portals. Cassandra had one, not a normal sling ring. Cassandra's was special, an artifact embedded with two infinity stones, the Time Stone and the Reality Stone. With those stones, that sling ring could open portals to other dimensional spaces with ease. Ordinary sling rings couldn't do that. Even Doctor Strange needed dangerous rituals like dreamwalking to cross dimensions. With Cassandra's ring, travel between universes would be trivial. 10 minutes ago, taking it might have meant fighting Cassandra. Now he chose a different approach. Xiao Ran slipped into Cassandra's private room inside Ant-Man's skull, a small, oddly luxurious chamber where Cassandra liked to sit and brood. She was there now, staring off into space, unaware someone had entered. He'd masked himself with a telepathic illusion that made him invisible to anyone without telepathy. Even other telepaths couldn't see through it unless their power exceeded his, or enough time passed that something felt off. Cassandra's psychic strength was weaker than his, so she wouldn't notice the illusion unless he touched her. He had to be fast. He wasn't just a telepath. While Cassandra brooded, Xiao Ran's gaze swept her pockets, then locked on the metal glint inside one of them. X-ray vision, a simple method, revealed the sling ring. In less than a millisecond, he lifted it from her pocket. He sank his body into the floor like a mirage and vanished from the chamber. For now, he didn't want an immediate confrontation. He needed to use his remaining extraction opportunities, maybe unlock a hidden achievement, and then deal with Cassandra later to clear the world. The moment he was gone, Cassandra stirred. She stood up alertly, eyes sweeping the room. Her hand went to her pocket, and her expression darkened. Chapter 46, Section 46, You damned thief! Cassandra glared around, but her psychic sweep found nothing. Gone? Rage flashed through her. Ever since she'd arrived in this void land and become the lord of these people, no one had dared toy with her like this. Who could it be? Faces flickered through her mind until she fixed on the image of a seemingly young Asian boy. Is it him? She hissed. Xiao Ran had only joined her forces that day, and now her things were stolen. Cassandra's suspicion turned to cruelty in an instant. She wasn't patient by nature. She'd always preferred killing a suspected offender and regretting it later than letting a threat escape. If he was the thief, she would make him pay. With that thought, she strode downstairs. After stealing Cassandra's sling ring, Xiao Ran had used the phasing ability to move through the solid matter beneath his feet, passing through walls until he returned to the room Red Devil had arranged for him. Phasing wasn't a standalone power, but a sub-ability of Cassandra's DNA manipulation. It let her atoms slip between the atoms of other objects, temporarily merging with them. When Xiao Ran phased through stone or wood, he became intangible, as if part of those materials, a strange magical experience. Opening his system character panel, Xiao Ran reviewed the abilities he'd inherited from Cassandra's trait extraction, including DNA manipulation. Named her. Lifespan, 17,400. Strength, 1.7 million tons. Defense, can withstand a 20 million ton nuclear explosion. Speed, bloodline, Kryptonian bloodline. Superpowers, telepathy, telekinesis, matter manipulation, energy manipulation, physical reconstruction, DNA replication. Extracted traits, Steel Body Superman, Steel Body Big Boss, true. Big, available extraction attempts, 2. Although he'd taken the Troops trait and many of Cassandra's powers, Xiao Ran was not a mutant. He hadn't inherited mutant genes, only her abilities. That meant anti-mutant measures wouldn't work on him. However, the traits he'd taken from Clark and Zod had given him a Kryptonian bloodline with mixed consequences. The advantage, solar absorption, would rapidly boost his strength. At his current rate, 24 hours under the sun raised his strength by 20,000 tons. 10 years could mean tens of millions more. The drawback, Kryptonian weaknesses, like kryptonite, would affect him too. Glad not every American comic world has kryptonite, Xiao Ran thought as he picked up the sling ring and slipped it onto his finger. The moment it went on, he felt a mental connection to it. Instinctively, he traced a circle in the air with the two fingers wearing the ring. A fiery circle sparked into being and expanded until it was about 2 meters across. This really is a divine artifact, he muttered. He glanced at the ring, grinned, and stepped into the portal. As his figure vanished, the circle sealed shut. A moment later, Cassandra burst into the room with Juggernaut, Red Devil, and others behind her. The room was empty. Cassandra turned on Red Devil. He was sweating. "Are you sure this is the room?" she demanded coldly. "Yes," Red Devil stammered. "This is the room I set for him." "Then where is he?" Cassandra snapped. Red Devil and the others had no answer. Red Devil hadn't seen Xiao Ran leave. Cassandra's patience snapped. With a gesture, she sank Red Devil and the others into the ground up to their necks, leaving their heads bobbing like frightened buoys. "Humph," she spun and left. "Go. Everyone, spread out and find Xiao Ran," she ordered. Her enraged voice rolled across the camp. No one dared question her. They dispersed to search. "Xiao Ran, don't let me catch you. I'll make you wish for death and not be able to find it." Cassandra's eyes glittered with menace as she issued the threat. A snowy forest lay some distance away. Dozens of TVA Purge Squad members lay scattered across the ground, their uniforms recognizable even in the blood and snow. The TVA's Purge Squad had once been notorious for pruning timelines. Since Loki's rise and the reformation that followed, the organization had shifted toward maintaining order. But in any massive bureaucracy, there were bad apples. Mr. Paradox, the one Wilson had met, had been one such rot. In a bid to end his assignment early and flaunt his power, he'd tried to destroy the entire timeline containing Deadpool. Deadpool was currently taking vengeance on that Purge Squad with the bones and claws of a dead Wolverine. When Xiao Ran stepped through the dimensional portal, the first thing he saw was Deadpool cutting a bloody swath through the soldiers. Deadpool had Wolverine's claws on his hands and drove them through the skull of one Purge Squad member. The claws somehow pierced too deeply. They'd stuck, and Deadpool even jabbed himself with them in the struggle. Xiao Ran winced at the sight. "That must hurt," he breathed. Not for Deadpool, who was infuriatingly self-destructive, but for the man with the claws through him. The injury was brutal. Even if the man survived, the trauma would be permanent. And to make matters worse, Deadpool couldn't immediately pull the claws back out. Another Purge Squad member sprang up to attack, and Xiao Ran saw an even more stomach-churning sight. Deadpool turned, abandoned the claws, and finished the engagement with a katana. The sharp blade sliced cleanly. The sounds and the sight were gutting. Xiao Ran watched, stunned. Watching scenes like this in person was a different experience from seeing them on a screen. He understood then why people warned about Deadpool. Shocking, gross, and wildly unrestrained. He fought the urge to look away as Deadpool sheathed his blade and kept moving through the snow-soaked carnage. Chapter 47, Section 47. "Didn't we agree no weapons?" Deadpool muttered, although he was the one kneeling over a pile of bodies. He just cut down a squad of TVA cleanup agents, then sheathed his katana after wiping the blood from the blade. "Hello? Can you see me?" He waved at Xiao Ran, jogged over in a little circle around him, and peered close. "You don't look TVA. You're not one of their buddies on the ground, are you? Please, don't get so close. You reek of blood," Xiao Ran said, pushing Deadpool away with a gentle hand. "So?" Deadpool replied, indignant. "Didn't I hear someone claim Wolverine is the only valuable thing produced in Maple Leaf Country? Excuse me, I'm from Maple Leaf Country too. Am I not valuable? Am I, Great Deadpool, not valuable?" He put on a mock-threatening face. "Don't follow me or Uncle Deadpool will hit you." Xiao Ran barely touched him. The next second, Deadpool flew like a cannonball across the landscape, crashing through a mountainside and coming to rest under a heap of rock. He lay there for a few beats, then blinked, straightened broken arms and legs as if they were only mildly inconvenient, and crawled out from the rubble. "Now, does Uncle Deadpool still want to hit me?" Xiao Ran hovered above, arms folded, smiling faintly. Deadpool squinted up at him. "Shit, did Henry have an Asian little brother? Are you from Krypton? Oh my god, this is a Disney set, not DC's." Deadpool flailed and stamped as if wounded by the implication. Xiao Ran simply watched until the show passed. When Deadpool cooled off, he admitted, "Okay, maybe I shouted a bit earlier. I apologize, but you can't steal my spotlight." "You're not in my spotlight," Xiao Ran said. "Can I go now?" Deadpool wilted like a frost-bitten eggplant, pulled out a TVA device, and opened a doorway behind him. "I'm not holding the door for you," he pouted, then scurried through. The door shut. He hadn't held it. Xiao Ran hadn't intended to use that door. He drew a circle in the air with a finger, sling ring style, and stepped through a portal of his own. On the other side was a bar. Deadpool had just popped out of the doorway and casually caught a throwing axe someone had flung at him, returning it to its bewildered owner. "Logan!" he shouted. Across the bar sat Logan, Wolverine, wearing a black sleeveless vest. A small, sparking portal opened nearby, and Xiao Ran walked out. Deadpool clutched his head theatrically. "Haunting, haunting," he wailed. "This guy insists on stealing my spotlight. Look, he even learned that trick from a magician. How shameless!" Xiao Ran stared. He could hear him. "You, clown in a circus costume, are you here for me?" Xiao Ran asked aloud. Logan leapt off his bar stool. Deadpool laughed until he doubled over. The Logan in front of them was only about 1.2 meters tall. Broad upper body, short legs, he looked ridiculous. "Ha! Oh my god, they actually found a Logan that matches the comics. I can't, my stomach." The tiny Logan's expression snapped from stoic to furious. He bared claws. "Are you provoking me?" he growled, and then looked to Xiao Ran. "You two together?" Xiao Ran waved him off. "No, I'll go check outside." He pushed open the bar door and stepped into a world of ice and snow. He shot up into the sky to scan. The entire planet stretched beneath him. There were surprisingly few mutants. What little remained were the dregs. Aside from this short Logan, there was almost nobody worth noting. "I knew it," Xiao Ran said, disappointed. Back in the bar, Logan was about to move, and Deadpool slipped away. Xiao Ran opened a portal beneath his feet and dropped through it. He landed on a burning street. Deadpool was already there and was being thoroughly beaten by a one-armed Wolverine. This Wolverine's left arm had been sealed with adamantium and couldn't grow back even with a healing factor. His right hand was fine. Parry and rip, Deadpool was on the receiving end. "Hey, need help?" Xiao Ran asked, partly rhetorical. "No, I can handle it. Don't steal my spotlight." Deadpool yelled as metal claws slashed his chest again and again. He was pinned down, getting his neck repeatedly stabbed. The scene felt ripped from a battered post-apocalyptic script. Chapter 55. Finally found it. Extracting Hulk entry. The main character found. Bone-chilling in its violence. Xiao Ran wondered, wryly, whether he'd actually been patched into someone else's movie. Why else would Deadpool be so obsessed with a spotlight? Had he accidentally modded two films at once? The thought amused him. He watched a moment longer. Deadpool was pinned under the one-armed Wolverine, blood everywhere. And then he was done watching. With a small flick of his hand through the air, the Wolverine who'd been riding Deadpool was launched backward, slammed headfirst into a wall, and fused with it in a spray of debris. Deadpool coughed, sputtering as he sat up. "Cough! Cough! Actually, I could have handled that myself." Deadpool coughed as he tumbled off the roof of a wrecked car, twisting his neck awkwardly when he hit the ground. He craned his head to the wall and laughed. One-armed Wolverine was embedded there like a grotesque statue. "Ha ha! Now it's a world-famous painting!" The one-armed Wolverine roared in fury. The wall cracked and shattered. "Oh shit! Not again!" Deadpool yelped, scrambling away and flinging open a nearby door. He turned and bolted through it. The one-armed Wolverine burst out of the ruined wall, missing his target. "And you!" he snarled as he charged at Xiao Ran. Xiao Ran only waved his hand. The charging one-armed Wolverine plunged straight into the floor, leaving only his head exposed as he continued to roar in the casino's wreckage. Deadpool slipped out of the door and strolled straight toward a one-eyed Wolverine sitting at a poker table. "Hey, Logan, how's your luck? I've got a world that might need saving," he said, grinning and leaning in. Then Deadpool noticed the pirate-style eye patch. "Oh, shit, you're one-eyed Wolverine." The remark set the one-eyed Wolverine off. He snapped his arm up and drove his claw through Deadpool's skull. The adamantium talon pierced up through his chin and out the top of his head, practically massaging Deadpool's brain. Xiao Ran, arriving just in time to see it, felt an odd little suspicion. Was Deadpool a glutton for getting beaten up? He seemed to get mauled every time. Okay, it's not you. Deadpool staggered backward, then dove into a portal and vanished. Don't look at me. I'm not with him. Xiao Ran shrugged when the one-eyed Wolverine turned his furious gaze on him. The Wolverine didn't hesitate. He lunged. Xiao Ran flicked his finger. The one-eyed Wolverine crashed through the casino ceiling and shot out into the night. That was all Xiao Ran wanted. He showed no curiosity, no hesitation. The person he sought wasn't here. He opened another portal and stepped through. He emerged to see Deadpool being hurled across a warehouse by a Wolverine with Superman's face. Good heavens, this Wolverine was strong. Xiao Ran lightly lifted a finger and froze the flying Deadpool in midair. With another casual motion, he flicked him sideways. Deadpool slammed, stuck against a wall. Cavill Wolverine! That's Cavill Wolverine! Deadpool cried from his plastered perch. Cavill Wolverine glared at Xiao Ran, then hefted a 100-pound slab of stone and hurled it at him. Hey, that's not polite, Xiao Ran said, and with a finger wiggle froze the slab in mid-flight. He gestured, sending the frozen stone back toward its thrower. Cavill Wolverine met it with a single punch and shattered it. See? That's the real Cavill Wolverine, Deadpool hooted. All right, I heard you. Xiao Ran dug at his ear, annoyed by Deadpool's constant racket. Cavill Wolverine snarled and lunged again, faster, stronger. Xiao Ran didn't lock him in place. Instead, he unleashed a blast of heat vision. The beam hit the charging Cavill Wolverine and blasted him right through the warehouse wall and out into the sky. Cavill Wolverine hit the ground and looked down at his scorched chest. His healing factor took over. Charred flesh knit back, skin smoothed, internal damage sealed. In moments, the hole in his chest was gone. He growled and charged back, smashing through the wall again, puffing, ran fast. Back outside a small wooden cabin in a forest, Deadpool popped out of a portal and walked up to an old grizzled hunter Wolverine sitting on the porch. Hey, got a world that needs you, he said in his usual patter, then added, All right, maybe I should put some moisturizing cream on your face first. You got any here? A gunshot answered him. Deadpool flew backwards. Xiao Ran stepped through the portal, and as the old man bellowed, Get out of my house! Watch Deadpool do a little carp leap to his feet, flick grass from his pants, flip the hunter the middle finger, and vanish into a portal before another round could be fired. The old man gave the empty air a disinterested glance and returned to his solitude. Xiao Ran tuned in with his super hearing. The sounds of the world flooded his mind. Mutants were extinct here. That explained why the old hunter lived alone and shut away in the mountains, avoiding hunters, avoiding humans. Another dead end. His patience had grown steady with each disappointment. He stepped into the next portal. Before he could get his bearings, a green fist smashed toward his head. He raised a hand to block it and felt the impossible force behind it. His eyes lit up. Finally, this was the one he'd been hunting. The big green giant before him was Hulk. Hey, how are you? Xiao Ran grinned. Hulk's reply was another fist. The impact sent something, a figure, flying away with a crash. It wasn't Xiao Ran who went spinning. It was Hulk's own rage that erupted across the clearing. Xiao Ran ignored the hulking mess and instead watched the system prompt bloom in his mind. Ding. Do you want to extract character entries for target character Hulk? Detected multiple character entries for Hulk. Please choose one for extraction. A list unfurled before him. Infinite rage. Your rage is boundless. As your anger rises, so does your power. Hulk. You are the green giant. Your skin is nearly indestructible. You possess immense strength, lifting 10,000 tons with one hand, and you can withstand a blast equivalent to a 10,000-ton nuclear explosion. Personality split. You have two personalities in constant conflict with one another. Xiao Ran scanned the entries. The third was junk, an unwanted split personality with downsides he didn't need. The second was tempting, but it would force him to become a full green giant, something he didn't want. The first, infinite rage, was the core of Hulk's power, the broken ability everyone feared. Choosing it meant he could harness Hulk's strength curve without necessarily becoming the whole monster. He selected infinite rage. The system acknowledged his choice, and a cold, coiling energy threaded through his chest, as if something red-hot and ancient had woken in his bones. Xiao Ran steadied himself and welcomed it. This was the kind of power that could turn a search into an answer. Chapter 49, Section 49. The Hulk's power depended on the version, but a Hulk fueled by infinite rage, so long as his fury kept climbing, would eventually reach a cataclysmic level. Normally, opponents knocked him out before that happened. The Hulk Xiao Ran had just punched away was an ordinary one, with a baseline strength of 10,000 tons. Not bad, nowhere near the hundreds of millions of tons from the comics, but far from the weakest. And as his rage spiked, his strength could explode. 10,000 tons one moment, 100,000 the next. Roar. The Hulk returned from being flung, face split by fury, charging like a green juggernaut. He launched himself into the air, leapt hundreds of meters, and swung a furious iron fist down toward Xiao Ran. Xiao Ran looked up and punched out at the same time. A colossal fist met a smaller one midair. The air itself warped. The shockwave blasted Wolverine and Deadpool aside in an instant. Rumble, dust and smoke swallowed the field, trees upended. From the swirl of debris, a figure stepped out. Xiao Ran, casually holding the dazed Hulk in one hand. With a flick, he threw him away. Thud, the Hulk crashed down in front of Wolverine. Wolverine shook his head and hauled himself up. He watched the Hulk struggle, fall, and fail to rise, then glanced back at Xiao Ran with surprise. This kid, was he really that powerful? In truth, the enraged Hulk had already surged to roughly 50,000 tons. It was a pity he'd been matched against Xiao Ran, who was operating at 1.7 million tons. Worse, Xiao Ran had already siphoned off the infinite rage trait from Hulk and was just testing it. He only had to think of something that angered him, and his 1.7 million tons spiked to 3 million. He'd taught the Hulk a lesson easily. Deadpool, meanwhile, had used the chaos to slip away. With his objective achieved, Xiao Ran smiled, waved to the groggy Hulk, opened a dimensional portal amid the green beast's bellowing, and vanished from the Hulk's furious gaze. "Stop yelling, he's gone," Wolverine muttered beside him. The next instant, a green fist slammed into Wolverine and sent him flying. Rumble! Dark clouds gathered overhead. Lightning forked through the sky with deafening crackles. As soon as Xiao Ran stepped out of the portal, he saw a nightmarish scene. The ground littered with blood-red skulls, a distant mountain formed of bones. On top of that ridge, a Wolverine, nailed to a bright yellow, X-shaped wooden frame, was howling in agony. "My apologies, I took a wrong turn," Deadpool, who'd arrived first, called sheepishly from nearby. "Yeah, sorry, my bad, I found the wrong place, I'm leaving." Deadpool produced his TVA device, toggled it, and opened a doorway. "Bye-bye." He waved as he backed toward it. Wolverine, strung to the wooden X, let out a low, pained growl. The rain intensified. This was a dead world, one with nothing Xiao Ran needed. "He's kind of pitiful," Xiao Ran said, glancing at the gaunt, aged Wolverine. "Not my problem." He turned, opened a portal, and stepped through. On the other side was another bar. This time there wasn't a tiny Wolverine nailed to a cross. Deadpool was already there, pointing a gun at a properly sized, properly attired Wolverine who slumped over at the bar with a bottle in hand. "Hey, look who I found!" Deadpool shouted to Xiao Ran. "This is him, the exact one I was looking for. Perfect." "Yeah," Xiao Ran said, watching. His drinking posture is textbook. The correct size Wolverine finished a bottle and collapsed to the floor, utterly drunk. Deadpool peered over and crowed, "Well, his drunk act is top-notch too." Deadpool bent down to help the big man up and then suddenly gaped. "Oh shit, look what I found." Xiao Ran ignored the show. He'd known about Wolverine's classic battlesuit for a long time. He sat at the bar and called to the bartender. "Give me a drink." The bartender frowned. "Kid, this isn't your place. Maybe go back to your mother." He took a bottle off the counter before Xiao Ran could reach it. "I'm an adult," Xiao Ran protested. "Is that so? You don't look it." The bartender smiled. "You look younger than my 14-year-old son." "I just have a baby face," Xiao Ran said. "All right, let me see your ID." The bartender held out his hand. Xiao Ran pointed at the empty table. The bartender, oddly, reached for an invisible card and peered at it seriously. "Well, you are old enough." He set down the Air ID and shook his head. "My goodness, never seen a 21-year-old like you." "You have now," Xiao Ran replied with a grin. "Hurry up and give me the drink." "What'll it be, sir?" the bartender asked. "That bottle in your hand. Pour me a glass," Xiao Ran said, pointing. "Hey, pour me one too." Deadpool poked his head over and added, while waving a flyer with ridiculous printed text. Xiao Ran watched as Deadpool had already stripped the drunk Wolverine's clothes away, revealing the classic suit. I didn't realize you had that hobby, Xiao Ran said dryly. Trust me, the audience loves it. Deadpool winked. Xiao Ran didn't want to be associated with that kind of thing. He picked up the glass the bartender handed him, downed it in one gulp, and asked for another. The bartender warned kindly, "This stuff's strong. Don't get too drunk." "Don't worry, I can hold it," Xiao Ran said and drained the second glass as well. Deadpool held up a small sign and read aloud with mock outrage. "Minors are not allowed to drink alcohol." "He's already an adult," Deadpool told the bartender, then flashed the absurd extra line on the sign. "P.S. Fourth update delivered." Chapter 56, Returning to Voidland, The Appointment, Heading to Kosei Island, Kushikawa Shizuka and Senya Chi. Really? Deadpool leaned in to get a closer look at Xiao Ran. Just as Xiao Ran was about to make a move, Deadpool chuckled and stepped back. "I don't believe it," Deadpool said. "Who cares if you believe it?" Xiao Ran snatched Deadpool's drink and drained it in one go. "Hey, that was mine!" Deadpool shouted. "It's mine now," Xiao Ran replied, pointing at the drunk Wolverine. "Aren't you supposed to take him away?" "Oh, I almost forgot my main job." Deadpool slapped his forehead, then helped the drunken Wolverine up, opened a portal, and began leading him toward it. "Aren't you coming?" he asked after a few steps, glancing back. "No, I want a few more drinks and to rest a while." Xiao Ran waved him off without turning around. He knew Deadpool was headed for the TVA, and that place made him uneasy. He'd finish his drinks and go straight back to Voidland. Deadpool and Wolverine would get there soon enough. "All right. I was going to introduce a friend to you," Deadpool said, as if it were Xiao Ran's loss. Seeing no response, he rolled his eyes and helped Wolverine into the portal. The portal snapped shut, and the two figures were gone. "One more drink." Xiao Ran set down the empty glass. "You hold your liquor well," the bartender said as he poured another. "Of course. In my past life, they called me the god of wine," Xiao Ran said with a smile. His tolerance now was far better than before. In fact, he couldn't get drunk at all. A few hours later, satisfied the time had passed, Xiao Ran left a $100 bill on the bar, opened a dimensional door, and stepped through. The door closed with a whoosh. The patrons howled about seeing a magician. The owner picked up the bill, examined it, and then, puzzled, asked the others, "Guys, if I go out and spend a $100 bill dated 2020, will people think it's counterfeit?" Laughter erupted. "Old John, are you crazy? It's only 2018. Hey, old John got a counterfeit bill. The magician left a fake 100, and it's dated 2020. Haha. Keep it for 2 years, old John. Then it'll be fine." "Good idea. Look at what a great idea we gave old John." Old John, half miffed, nearly tore up the bill, then stopped. "Forget it. I'll keep it as a souvenir." He decided he'd frame it, a reminder never to accept counterfeit money again. Xiao Ran had no idea the bill's date was from the wrong year. He'd found it in Voidland. Who knew when it had been printed? He was certain, however, it wasn't counterfeit. Back in Voidland, he arrived at the same ramshackle house where he'd woken that morning. "It's already dark," he muttered, staring at the strange sky. Voidland had no sun or moon, but it still had a day-night cycle. He had no idea where the light came from. Eros, maybe? He shrugged it off. "I'll sleep first and deal with it tomorrow." There didn't seem to be anything urgent. Deadpool and Wolverine's plotline was already in motion. By morning, they were supposed to go with the Resistance to Cassandra's camp. In the original timeline, they'd fight Cassandra's subordinates, rout them, and at some point, Deadpool and Wolverine would put Juggernaut's helmet on Cassandra, rendering her unable to use her psychic powers. Without her powers, she couldn't use a sling ring to open a portal out of Voidland. At that moment, a rebellious fireman would run in and shoot Cassandra a few times. Seeing her about to die, Wolverine would finally trust her and take off her helmet, saving her life. Cassandra, for all her instability, would keep her promise and send Deadpool and Wolverine out, then immediately attempt to destroy the universe Deadpool came from, and eventually all universes. That had been the original plot. The problem now was the sling ring was no longer in Cassandra's possession. It was in Xiao Ran's. Even if Deadpool and Wolverine managed to break through Cassandra's camp, she wouldn't be able to send them out. "Just pray I'm not late tomorrow, or you guys are in trouble," Xiao Ran grinned, then flopped onto the filthy bed. He closed his eyes and was asleep in seconds. He opened them to find himself back in his home in Zongman World. Yoko Okino was clinging to him like an octopus. Xiao Ran snapped his fingers. His body drifted through Yoko's arms, through the bedroom wall, and into the bathroom next door. "What a handy ability," he said to his reflection in the mirror. He picked up the toothbrush and toothpaste and went through his morning routine. A few minutes later, he opened the bathroom door, snapped his fingers, and a set of clothes flew out of the wardrobe, passed through the wardrobe doors and the wall, and magically settled on him. Perfect. He glanced at his outfit, then walked out. It was 7:50 a.m. After breakfast and a cup of coffee, Xiao Ran grabbed a taxi to the pier. Sonoko had arranged a ferry at 8 to Kosei Island, where they'd check into a family villa, have a short rest and lunch, and then be picked up that afternoon for the theme park. The schedule was relaxed. They had 2 days in VIP passes, so no waiting in lines for rides. The pier was already crowded, travelers with suitcases and backpacks in tight clusters, noise everywhere. Xiao Ran pushed through to the VIP lounge. "Excuse me, please move aside." "Excuse me, let me through." Inside the lounge, Sonoko waved. "Xiao Ran, over here." He hurried over. "Morning, have you been here long?" Sonoko and Xiao Ran both shook their heads. "No, actually, we just got here too. There are too many people outside, so we came here for some peace and quiet," Sonoko said with a smile, sticking out her tongue. Her adorable face made Xiao Ran steal a few more glances. Sonoko had dressed up thoughtfully today. Instead of her school uniform, she wore a white cropped jacket over a light green short-sleeved shirt and a pair of jeans that showed off her legs. She looked full of youthful energy. "Where are your aunt and uncle?" Xiao Ran asked. "They're not coming with us," Sonoko replied, standing to twirl in front of him. "How do I look? Is it good?" She'd clearly noticed Xiao Ran staring. Women dress up for the people they want to impress. Sonoko liked the way Xiao Ran had looked at her earlier. It made all the time she'd spent picking out clothes worth it. Very pretty," Xiao Ran said, reaching out to gently remove Sonoko's hair tie and letting her hair fall free. "This is even better." "Really?" Sonoko turned to him. "Ran, what do you think?" Ran, caught off guard by Sonoko's appearance, quickly nodded. You look great, better than usual. Sonoko, you really don't suit hair ties." "No way." Sonoko blushed and then took Xiao Ran's hand, asking shyly, "Xiao Ran, do I really look nice?" "You're charming," he said with a smile, gently squeezing her palm. Sonoko flushed deeply. "Really?" she murmured, lowering her head. "Then I won't wear hair ties anymore." Ran, who'd been watching the two of them, smiled indulgently to herself. Sonoko really was head over heels, she thought. So obvious. "Hey, don't run around, you brat," came a shout. "Ran on Isen." Konan and Muri Kogoro's voices snapped them back to reality. Muri was holding a soda, and Konan trotted over, eyes fixed on Ran, and barely registering Xiao Ran and Sonoko. "Uncle Muri, good morning." Sonoko had returned to her usual playful self and greeted Muri with a smile. "And you, brat, don't run around, understand?" she scolded, hands on her hips. Konan pretended to be unimpressed, but then looked back at Sonoko. "How do I look? Am I handsome?" he asked with a grin. "Rano-Nisan is the most beautiful." Sonoko giggled. Konan sniffed and turned away. Why had he never praised Ran like that before? He scowled inwardly. Praising her now felt like it might be too late. "Uncle Muri, isn't Fei Yingli coming?" Xiao Ran asked casually, more interested in Fei Yingli than he let on. He hadn't had many chances to interact with her yet. "Her? She said she had a case and couldn't come," Muri answered with a laugh. The truth was a little messier. When Ran had called her mother, Muri had jabbered on beside her, saying Fei Yingli wasn't the only one busy and that she could have come if she wanted. In the end, Fei Yingli had gotten annoyed and said she wouldn't come at all. "That's a shame," Xiao Ran said, nodding. Muri, unaware of what Xiao Ran really meant, assumed he felt sorry they'd be missing a family member and laughed that without Fei Yingli they'd have more fun. It was 7:55. The VIP lounge guests could board first. Sonoko called for everyone to gather. Konan made a move to run to Ran, but Xiao Ran caught him by the arm. "Konan, don't run. You'll get lost," he said with a smile. Konan shot him an angry glare. "Damn you, Xiao Ran. Don't you dare have any ideas about Ran," he hissed when nobody was looking. "Kudo, you haven't given up yet?" Konan muttered. If you ask me, you should just give up. Ha! You're dreaming. I'm not giving up. Xiao Ran shot back, chuckling. What aren't you giving up? Ran, who was walking ahead, turned around and asked curiously. Conan's angry expression instantly froze. Under Xiao Ran's teasing look, he blurted, "It's about playing detective. The detective boys game. Xiao Ran told me to behave and stop always wanting to play detective games." Brat, Xiao Ran's right. You're just too energetic, Mori grumbled. Conan had spent every spare minute at the Mori Detective Agency lately, and his constant activity annoyed Mori. Be obedient. Dad and Xiao Ran are right. You can't run around by yourself. Conan glowered at Xiao Ran in private. This is all his fault, he thought. Soon they reached the ferry. It was quite large, with 3 decks, upper, middle, and lower. The VIPs were on the top deck with the best views. Xiao Ran and his group had front row seats. Conan wanted to bolt toward Ran again, but Mori hauled him over and made him sit next to him. Brat, your seat's here, Mori said gruffly. Every day it's the same. Can't you just behave? Conan sat down, seething inside as the 3 of them chatted and laughed together. At that moment, 2 girls were walking by, checking tickets and looking for their seats. Isn't that Senya Chi-sensei from the school infirmary? Ran called out, recognizing one of them. Senya turned and smiled. Ah, it's Ran. Hello. Sonoko leaned in, beaming. Senya-sensei, good morning. Are you out for a trip too? Yes, Senya said, introducing the woman beside her. This is my good friend Kushikawa Shizuka, the new doctor expected to transfer to our school infirmary next week. Hello, everyone. Kushikawa Shizuka greeted them with a warm smile. She had long golden hair and matching eyes, a look of innocence about her, and a figure that complemented Senya Chi's. Both women were enviable, but Kushikawa's presence had something especially striking about it. Senya-sensei, I'm Xiao Ran, Ran and Sonoko's classmate, Xiao Ran said, giving them a quick appraisal and thinking, another crossover. Senya was familiar. She belonged to the same circle as Yotsuya Miko. Xiao Ran hadn't expected that not only had Yotsuya Miko and Baihei Chuanhua transferred to Teitan High, but Senya Chi as well. Kushikawa Shizuka was a character from a different world entirely, High School of the Dead. Apparently she was transferring next week. Would Miyamoto Rei, Busujima Seiko, and Takagi Saya follow? He wondered, half amused. Hello, Xiao Ran, Kushikawa said brightly. Chapter 52, Section 52. Senya Chi smiled and greeted the handsome young man, glancing at him a few extra times. Hello, I'm Kushikawa Shizuka. Kushikawa Shizuka, looking a little dazed as usual, also bowed to Xiao Ran. Her natural airiness was practically part of her charm, just like her figure. Hello, Teacher Kushikawa. Xiao Ran smiled faintly and asked, I saw you 2 looking for seats earlier. Mind if I take a look at your ferry tickets? Here you go. See, Kushikawa Shizuka handed him the tickets without thinking. Xiao Ran glanced at them and noticed their seats were on the 2nd floor, not the 3rd. It would have been a miracle if they'd found seats on the 3rd floor. Actually, your seats are 1 floor down, not here. He handed the tickets back. I knew it, he added. Senya Chie slapped her forehead in exasperation. Shizuka, I shouldn't have let you handle the seats. Huh? Kushikawa Shizuka blinked, genuinely puzzled. Was I spacing out? Sonoko smiled and waved it off. It's fine. There are still plenty of empty seats up here. I saved 2 seats next to us, one for Ran's mother, Fei Yingli, and one for that idiot Shinichi Kudo. They didn't show, so sit here, you 2 teachers. Although the 3rd floor was designated VIP, it was mostly a nicer location. The seats were essentially the same on all decks. Sonoko had picked 2 extra seats just in case, and since they remained unused, she offered them to Senya Chi and Kushikawa Shizuka. Are you sure it won't cause trouble? Senya Chi asked, embarrassed at taking advantage. It's fine, teacher, Sonoko said with a smile. I bought these seats anyway. They just couldn't make it. Ran agreed cheerfully. Senya Chi nodded and led her absent-minded friend over. 4 beautiful women, 2 adults and 2 younger ones, sat together in a row. It was a lovely sight, though only Xiao Ran seemed to be fully appreciating it. After settling in, Senya Chi leaned toward Kushikawa Shizuka and whispered, Why were you staring at Xiao Ran just now? Huh? Was I? I was just spacing out, Kushikawa Shizuka replied with an innocent blink. Senya Chi sighed. I give up. Next time you space out, could you do it where no one is watching? Xiao Ran had no misunderstanding. He recognized Kushikawa Shizuka's vacant look. She really had been lost in thought. The ferry left Tokyo Bay and sailed east for 120 kilometers, about an hour and a half, before arriving at Kosei Island with a land area of 3,000 square kilometers. The ferry pulled into one of the island piers, and tourists disembarked, chatting and laughing as they walked off. "Teachers, do you have lodging arranged?" Sonoko asked Senya Chie and Kushikawa Shizuka. "Shizuka, what's the name of the hotel we booked?" Senya Chie asked, turning to her friend. Kushikawa Shizuka looked as if question marks were floating above her head. "I booked it?" Senya Chie groaned inwardly. "Why did I let her handle the reservations? Did you forget to book a hotel?" Kushikawa Shizuka shook her head. "No, I don't know." That settled it. If she couldn't even remember whether she'd booked anything, she definitely hadn't. "Looks like we'll have to find something when we get there. I hope there are rooms left." "Why don't you stay with us?" Sonoko offered with a smile. "We have plenty of rooms, and at this hour it might be hard for you to find a hotel." Senya Chie hesitated. After taking seats, would it be too much to take a room too? But Kushikawa Shizuka tugged at her arm and rubbed her stomach. "Chie, I'm hungry." "You just had breakfast," Senya Chie said, sighing. "All right, Sonoko, thank you so much." "You're too polite, teacher," Sonoko giggled. A short while later, they boarded the special car provided by the Suzuki family, a stretch limousine that would take them to the villa where they were staying. The 7 people in the limo chatted and laughed. Sonoko popped a bottle of champagne and poured everyone a little. Conan, of course, couldn't drink alcohol. Sonoko handed him a bottle of milk instead, which earned her a glare from him. The drive from the pier to the villa took over half an hour at about 70 kilometers per hour. They entered a sprawling villa area, huge European-style houses, each standing well apart on expansive grounds, landscaped with flowers, plants, and trees, giving it a feel of being close to nature. The limo drove through an opening gate and stopped in a small square before a villa with a large fountain. The house looked like a castle. "We're here," Sonoko announced, hopping out. A butler and several servants who had been waiting bowed as they arrived. Ran tugged at Sonoko's sleeve. "Is all this really necessary?" Sonoko waved her hand dismissively. "This is part of the villa's amenities. You don't leave a place like this unattended." "Come on, I'll show you around. Then you can pick rooms," Sonoko said, taking Xiao Ran's hand and pulling him ahead with a grin. Ran followed, delighted. Conan, lagging behind, brightened at the sight. He inwardly cheered, "Take that annoying Xiao Ran away so he stops trying to get close to Ran." Muri Kogoro glared at Conan, disgusted and embarrassed by the brat. He thought he shouldn't have brought him. Conan made him look foolish as a detective. Kogoro preferred to walk slowly and enjoy the place. He wasn't as energetic as the younger ones. Sonoko ran back to fetch Ran, Senya Chie, and Kushikawa Shizuka, leaving only Conan and Muri Kogoro further behind. Conan watched the group ahead, especially Xiao Ran and Ran laughing together, and felt his jealousy flare. He was about to rush forward, calling, "Ran Onichan?" But Muri grabbed him in one swift motion. "Don't run. Stay with me," Muri scolded, and gave Conan a quick tap on the head. Conan rubbed his head, watching the pair ahead with a hollow ache in his chest. Xiao Ran glanced back and noticed Conan's miserable expression, then smiled all the more. After showing them around, Sonoko led everyone to the villa's second floor to assign rooms. "This is my room," she said, opening a door. "Ran, do you want to stay next to me?" "Sure," Ran said, and Sonoko opened the adjoining room. The rooms were similar in layout, comfortable and neatly arranged. "What about the room next to that one?" Sonoko asked. Conan was about to raise his hand, but Xiao Ran beat him to it. Chapter 53, Section 53. "Then I'll take this one," Xiao Ran said. Then this room is Xiao Ran's." Sonoko nodded, then pointed to the room nearest the stairs. "Muri Kogoro, how about you and Conan take that one?" "No problem." Muri Kogoro shrugged. He didn't care which room he got. Truth be told, he hadn't wanted to come at all. What was the point of going out when he could be drinking at home? It was a rare 2-day stretch without his daughter around. He should be out calling friends and drinking until dawn. "Senya-sensei and Kushikawa Shizuka, you two can take the 2 rooms across the hall," Sonoko said, pointing down the corridor. "Shizuka, which one do you want?" Senya Chie shook her head. "Can't I sleep with Chie?" Kushikawa Shizuka gave her a pleading look. No, you're too fidgety when you sleep. Senya refused without hesitation, then pointed. I'll take this one. Shizuka, you take the other. Oh, Kushikawa Shizuka pouted in mock offense. Kushikawa Shizuka is so cute, Sonoko whispered to Ran. She is, Ran agreed, smiling. Shizuka really was adorably childish compared to most grown-ups. After assigning rooms, everyone went to put away their luggage. Xiao Ran's was just a backpack. He tossed it on a chair and strolled out onto the balcony to look. From here he could see the artificial rainforest below, mist curling through, dry ice effects, then a golf course beyond that, more forest, and finally the sea. The villas had been sited for privacy. From his balcony, he couldn't see any neighboring houses. It felt like this villa stood alone. Rich people really know how to enjoy themselves, Xiao Ran said with a smile, though he wasn't jealous. If he wanted this sort of thing, he could get it. After a short rest, Sonoko dragged everyone to the little maze in the villa's backyard. While the ants are still preparing lunch, how about a race to see who can get out first, she suggested. We'll make 2 teams. I, Ran, Senya-sensei, and Kushikawa Shizuka against you 3 boys. Want to compete? Fine by me, Xiao Ran shrugged. I want to be on Ran Nichin's team. Conan shot his hand up. Idiot. Mori Kogoro smacked the kid on the head. You're supposed to be with me, your master, understand? Conan's face fell. He regretted becoming Mori's disciple all over again. All right, we'll go in from this entrance, and you'll go in from that entrance. First team to the exit wins. The losing team has to obey the winner's orders at the theme park this afternoon. No refusals, Sonoko declared. Okay, Xiao Ran nodded, then looked at Mori. Any problems, Mori Kogoro? Of course not. We'll win for sure, Mori said confidently. Conan rolled his eyes. He was sure they'd lose. All right, let's go, Sonoko shouted, then pulled Ran and dashed into the left entrance. Senya-chi and Shizuka followed. Let's go, Mori said, brimming with confidence. Conan, your master seems sure of himself. Xiao Ran teased the boy beside him. Conan scowled, trying to look cool. We're definitely going to lose, he muttered, stuffing his hands in his pockets. Sonoko probably knows which entrance is easier. They picked that side, so ours has to be harder. Hey, hurry up, you two. Mori called from the front. Coming, Xiao Ran answered. Kudo, it's on you. You don't want to lose either, right? Conan sighed, then straightened. All right, I'll have to do something about it. More than half an hour later, the boys stumbled out at the maze exit. Too slow. Sonoko laughed. We've been waiting for you for almost 10 minutes. Chapter 58, Xiao Ran surrounded by beautiful women. Not human. Conan. Darn it. Conan had spoken too soon. He glanced at Xiao Ran, who was looking at him with a smug expression. Cheaters! Sonoko Nichan, you cheated! Conan yelled. Hey, Conan, you stinky brat. Are you trying to lose and not admit it? Sonoko shot back, narrowing her eyes. All right, we'll honor the bet. You won, Xiao Ran said, pressing down Conan's protesting head. How we play this afternoon is up to you. It's all that brat's fault, running around every which way. If he'd listened, we definitely would have won. Mori glared at Conan in disgust. Fine, fine. It's my fault, Conan grumbled inwardly. In the dining room, the ants had laid out a generous lunch. After washing up, everyone sat down. Let's eat. The spread was impressive, and Sonoko even brought out a bottle of vintage wine her father had collected. Mori Kogoro was thrilled and kept drinking until his face flushed. Dad, you're drunk, Ran said, exasperated. Don't talk nonsense. I'm not drunk, Mori slurred. I can still drink 10 more cups. Believe me? Ran could only stare. Sonoko and Xiao Ran were barely holding back laughter. Ran, your dad's like this. He probably can't go to the theme park this afternoon, Xiao Ran said. Since that's the case, why not let him drink to his heart's content? It's a rare day out. Ran nodded helplessly. Really, Dad's always like this. Ha, Xiao Ran, my boy. I like the way you talk. Come, cheers. Mori raised his glass and pulled Xiao Ran into a toast. Xiao Ran grinned and clinked his glass of juice against Mori's. I'll drink to that. Take it easy. He downed his juice in one gulp. Good drinker. Mori cheered, then lifted the large half-glass of wine and swallowed it in one go. Conan rolled his eyes. Are you kidding? That's juice. Anyone could down that. If that's good drinking, then who can't drink a liter? Another cup, Mori called. Mori Kogoro set down his wine glass and barked something. The next moment, he collapsed across the dining table. Within seconds, he was snoring loudly. Ran stared at him. Having a father like this is exhausting, she thought. With the help of 2 servants, Mori Kogoro was finally carried to his room and laid on the bed. "It's fine, Ran," Sonoko said, trying to comfort her. "There are servants in the villa. They'll take good care of Uncle Mori." "Thanks, Sonoko," Ran replied, though she still looked worried. "Don't mention it. Let's go." Sonoko giggled, grabbed Ran's arm, and pulled her out of the room. Inside, Mori Kogoro, still sound asleep, suddenly opened one eye and peered toward the door. "Ch," he muttered to himself. "What's so fun about an amusement park with a bunch of kids? Better to get drunk and skip it." He gave himself a private thumbs up and settled back down. 12:30 p.m. The limousine sent to pick them up waited in the small plaza in front of the villa. Sonoko held Ran's hand with one hand and pulled Xiao Ran with the other. Behind them walked Senya Chie and Kushikawa Shizuka together, and bringing up the rear was Conan, hands in his pockets and clearly annoyed. "Of all things, Uncle Mori really ditched me," Conan grumbled. He was pretty sure Mori had gotten drunk on purpose to avoid going to the park. And earlier that morning, the 3 boys had lost to Sonoko and her 3 friends. If they went to the amusement park, the girls would get to decide everything. He'd heard the new horror-themed park was terrifying, but Conan wasn't too worried. At 7 years old, many extreme attractions wouldn't let him on anyway, so he could refuse. But Xiao Ran probably wouldn't be so lucky. Conan glanced at Xiao Ran, who was being led by Sonoko, and felt a little pleased about that. The 6 of them piled into the limousine and set off for the island's new horror park. "Let's do Death Adventure first. I've heard that's the best." Sonoko was already planning the route in the car. Conan sat by himself across from them, sipping a drink and rolling his eyes, feeling superfluous. After a half-hour drive, they arrived at the park. Though it was already afternoon, a long line of visitors waited at the entrance to get in. They stepped out of the limo, and Sonoko handed them all passes that looked like staff badges. They hung the passes around their necks and headed for the VIP entrance. The attendant checked their passes and, satisfied, waved them through. "Come on, Death Adventure first," Sonoko said, tugging Xiao Ran along. Ran followed behind. The Death Adventure was a haunted house on a huge scale, 2 underground levels with staff members disguised as killers who chased the guests. If someone was killed, they were locked up until the session ended. Each session admitted 30 people. Because the venue was so large, 30 didn't feel crowded. Using their VIP privileges, the group skipped the line and were added directly to the current batch of 30. All 30 guests waited in the same holding area. When the staff announced it was time to enter, they filed through an open door and onto a platform where a small train would take them into the attraction. "Conan, let's sit together," Xiao Ran said, pulling the reluctant Conan into the 3rd row. In front of them were Chie and Shizuka. Further ahead sat Ran and Sonoko. The little train puffed white smoke and began to chug forward. They passed through a green glowing tunnel and came up on a waterfall. As the train approached, the waterfall split to let them pass beneath. A few minutes later, the slow train stopped at another dilapidated platform and everyone disembarked. "What do we do now?" Ran asked, peering around. Sonoko shrugged. She'd never been through this attraction before either. Just then, a wet, gurgling sound came from the far side of the platform. Heads turned. A pool of what looked like fresh blood suddenly gushed out across the floor. Conan sniffed, curled his lip, and said, "Fake." He was very familiar with the smell of blood. One sniff was enough to tell whether it was real. The others weren't so sharp. Some of the girls screamed, and their male companions immediately moved to shield them. "Something's moving over there," a girl suddenly cried, pointing. Everyone followed her gaze. While most of them were still focused on the spreading blood, Xiao Ran noticed a mechanism opening in a dark corner. A staff member in a ghost costume crawled through. Sonoko clung to Xiao Ran's arm, suddenly frightened. He gave her hand a quick, reassuring pat. "Don't worry, I'm here." "Xiao Ran, you're the only guy with us. Remember to protect us," Chi teased. Conan was indignant. "Hey, am I not a person?" Before he could get an answer, someone shouted, "A monster's coming out!" People in front screamed and scattered. In the dark corner, something furry writhed and then straightened up. It wasn't an animal at all, but a person, an enormous one, at least 2 meters tall, with wild hair that seemed to float by itself. "I'll kill you all," the killer roared, swinging a nearly 2 meter machete and stalking toward them. "It's a killer!" Sonoko shrieked. She grabbed Xiao Ran so hard she nearly pulled him off his feet and tried to run the other way. "Don't split up," Xiao Ran called, holding Sonoko with one hand and Ran with the other. He urged everyone to run in the same direction. Conan rolled his eyes, but when he turned, he saw that Xiao Ran had taken Ran's hand. Fury flared in him. He hadn't expected to feel that jealous, but he couldn't help it. The crowd surged forward, chased by the killer. In the confusion, the 30 visitors got separated. Xiao Ran's group, the 6 of them, ended up in what looked like an abandoned hospital. The path they'd come from was suddenly plunged into darkness. The guiding lights that had been there when they entered were gone, as if someone had intentionally routed them here. "Okay, stop for a second. That killer isn't after us anymore," Xiao Ran said, so the running slowed and they all paused. A few of them were out of breath. Shizuka, in particular, was panting heavily. "Chie, I can't run anymore," Shizuka complained. "There's a place to sit up ahead. Let's rest there for a bit," Chie said, spotting a row of fairly clean chairs and pulling Shizuka toward them. "Is that killer really not chasing us?" Sonoko asked, glancing back nervously. Her hand was still clenched tightly in Xiao Ran's. Ran beside her held on too. Chapter 55, Section 55. Even though Ran had trained in karate and had been a national junior champion, she was actually very afraid of ghosts and things like that. Even when she knew rationally they were fake, she couldn't help the spike of fear. "Don't worry, they didn't follow us," Xiao Ran said, trying to reassure the others. He turned and frowned at the abandoned hospital ahead of them. Through his X-ray vision, he could clearly see staff members in ghost makeup hiding inside, but a few of the figures stood out. "These aren't human, are they?" he thought. The muscle density was all wrong, and their shapes were stranger than the rest. An observer might assume it was makeup, but Xiao Ran knew better. That wasn't makeup, that was their real form. He smiled. A horror-themed amusement park with non-human monsters hiding in plain sight? Interesting. He had come simply to relax, but now there might be something unexpected to gain. He didn't know what they were exactly, though. After resting a little at the hospital entrance, Kushikawa Shizuka was able to move again, and the group slipped inside. Large patches of blackened blood and collapsed debris littered the place. The whole hospital looked as if it had been attacked. The evacuation must have been frantic. Things had been left everywhere. Of course, it was all part of the attraction, arranged to spook visitors. "Xiao Ran, are you scared?" Kushikawa Shizuka, her face buried almost completely against Ran's chest, had tucked herself behind him. Her voice trembled a little. "I'm fine. Kushikawa-sensei, are you scared?" Xiao Ran asked, turning to look at her. It's terrifying," she admitted, her fear written plainly on her face. "It's all fake. Remember that." Xiao Ran tried to comfort her. "They're just decorations, no reason to be scared." Conan, hands in his pockets, tried to sound nonchalant. "You stinky brat, don't act all grown up." Sonoko glared at him, but a moment later she let out a shriek and flung herself into Xiao Ran's arms. "What's wrong?" Xiao Ran asked, already knowing. A mechanism had opened behind them, and a staff member in ghost makeup had slipped out, standing right behind Conan. "Hey, Sonoko Onisan, don't jump like that!" Conan had a cold sweat running down his forehead, but he kept trying to insist he wasn't frightened. At that moment, a patch of hair, foul and rotten-smelling, dropped down around Conan's head. "Ah!" Even brave Conan couldn't take such a sudden scare. He screamed and bolted. "I'll kill you," a staff member playing a killer crowed, then grabbed Conan. "Kid, I'm going to eat you." He opened a blood-red mouth, and inside looked like writhing maggots. The stench hit Conan so hard he almost vomited. "Conan!" Rand shouted, lunging to save him, but several nearby patient room doors suddenly flew open. Dozens of staff in killer costumes, dragging knives, brandishing chainsaws, surrounded them, laughing in eerie, chilling voices. Conan screamed as one of them plunged a prop knife into his chest. "I'm going to die! I'm going to die!" His eyes went wide with terror. "Little friend, it's fake. It won't hurt," the killer performing the scene said, as he shifted back to his normal voice. addressing the shaken Conan. Ha! Ha! I know it's fake. I wasn't scared at all. Conan forced a strained smile, trying to be defiant. Heh, what a stubborn little friend, the actor laughed. You're dead now, so you'll have to stay locked up with the others. Conan reluctantly nodded. Damn it. Eliminated so early? He watched Xiao Ran pick up an IV pole and fend off the approaching actors, protecting Ran and the others as they retreated. Seeing Conan killed, Ran gave up trying to rescue him. Once Xiao Ran had pushed the killers back for a moment, the five of them turned and ran. Damn you, Xiao Ran! Conan's eyes were green with jealousy. They ran until they slammed a door shut, dragged a table to block it, and finally let out a collective breath. That scared me to death. Sonoko patted her chest. And that brat Conan got killed. It was so tragic. Sonoko, could you not laugh at that? Ran said helplessly. Sonoko tried to look solemn, but then burst into laughter. He acted like he wasn't afraid of anything, but he was screaming like a little kid. You're the one who jumped right into Xiao Ran's arms, Ran teased. I'm a girl. Sonoko shot back, blushing slightly as she glanced at Xiao Ran. Besides, I'm naturally scared of ghosts. Aren't you, Ran? Of course I am. You know it. I'm terrified of this stuff. Ran's face looked a little pale. Her fear was genuine. Have you seen Shizuka? Senya Chie asked suddenly. Kushikawa-sensei? Sonoko and Ran looked around and realized there had been 4 of them when they ran in. Kushikawa, Shizuka, was gone. She must have gotten separated when we were running, Sonoko said. What should we do? Should we go out and look for her? Ran asked, worried. I'll go, Senya Chi offered. Senya-sensei, are you sure you can go alone? Sonoko asked. She and Senya Chi had screamed the loudest earlier. It was clear Senya Chi was also scared. I'll go instead, Xiao Ran said, stepping forward. You 3 stay here and look for any clues about the exit. There are lots of things in this office. There should be clues. Xiao Ran, are you sure? Want me to go with you? Senya Chi asked, looking at him. No need. It's better for the 3 of you to stay together and watch each other's backs. I'm a guy. I can handle it. Xiao Ran shook his head. But let's set a password first. Only open the door if I say the password. Even if the voice outside sounds like me, don't open it unless it's the right password. Ran and the others nodded. Xiao Ran leaned close to each of them in turn and whispered the password into their ears. His breath brushed their skin, and when he finished, all 3 girls were flushed. Xiao Ran pretended not to notice, pushed the table away from the door, opened it, and stepped out. Remember, don't open the door without the password, he called back. Be careful, Xiao Ran. Sonoko ran up and hugged him. From the angle Ran and Senya Chi couldn't see, she quickly kissed him on the cheek and stepped back. Xiao Ran, please be careful, Senya Chi said. Xiao Ran, we'll wait for you here, Ran added. Chapter 56, Section 56. Xiao Ran nodded and told them to shut the door. After he heard the clicks of locks and the shuffling of tables inside, he turned and headed down the left corridor. He activated his X-ray vision and scanned every corner of the abandoned hospital, quickly spotting Kushikawa Shizuka. Somehow she had gone all the way down to the first basement level. She actually went to B1. He shook his head, wondering if she had a terrible sense of direction. Otherwise, how had she wandered so far from them? With his destination clear, Xiao Ran hurried to the nearest staircase and descended. The lights down here were a sickly green. Only the safety strips along the floor glowed, throwing an eerie, gnawing light down the corridor. Clatter. Something fell in a room to his left. Through the wall, he saw a staff member dressed as a ghost, grinning as he dropped a battered ID card. The man then crawled under a table, waiting to jump out and scare whoever entered. Xiao Ran watched, unamused, and kept walking. After a moment, the staff member crawled out, muttering, he didn't fall for it. He then pressed a hidden switch and slipped through a panel. Xiao Ran moved deliberately, sweeping the hospital with his X-ray vision. He paid special attention to non-human presences. There were 3 of them in total, 2 on the 2nd floor and 1 down here on B1. The one on B1 was already very close to Kushikawa Shizuka. Was it targeting her? He turned toward the intersection ahead, which led into another corridor on the right. A partition door was suddenly shoved open and a stumbling figure barreled into view. Kushikawa-sensei? Xiao Ran caught her as she began to fall. It's you, Xiao Ran. Did you get lost? She blinked in surprise. No, I came to find you, Xiao Ran said, keeping his arms around her. The sensation was better than when he'd held Yoko Okino. Kushikawa Shizuka felt leagues above Yoko in charm. She blushed, touched. You came all this way just for me? She gushed, clearly moved. You've gone to so much trouble, Xiao Ran. Men of responsibility indeed. She didn't seem to notice how intimate their posture looked. Leaning against him, she savored the warmth of being protected and said nothing about boundaries. Footsteps echoed from the way she'd come, closer now. Kushikawa finally remembered the terrifying figure that had chased her and straightened. Xiao Ran, something's following me. Let's get out of here, she whispered. No rush. I want to see, he replied, keeping one arm around her waist. Bang! The partition door, which had shut moments before, was flung open again. A creature stepped across the threshold. Purplish-blue skin stretched over a gaunt frame, red eyes gleaming in the dark, and a grin that split its face nearly to the ears, revealing rows of jagged teeth. It gave a mocking, delighted chuckle. Oh, I didn't expect another cute snack to deliver itself. Is this a buy one get one free deal? It crooned. This wasn't one of the staff's fake killers. The presence was wrong. The hair on Xiao Ran's neck rose. He ignored the creature's words and told Kushikawa, close your eyes and cover your ears. She didn't question him. She obeyed, pressing her hands over her face and ears. The creature laughed, amused. You really think hiding like that will save you? Blood food? Introduce yourself, Xiao Ran said, studying it. He felt little threat from it, more like a scavenger than a major enemy, but he was curious where it came from. Determining its origin might tell him which world this visitor belonged to. Introduce myself? The thing chuckled. Why would I lower myself before mere food? Blood food, Xiao Ran thought. Two possibilities sprang to mind, a ghoul or a demon. It didn't look like the ghouls he'd seen, and its skin was wrong. The other option was a demon, a physical demon that shunned sunlight. So this is some kind of demon slayer-type demon? He wondered. He hadn't expected elements from the demon slayer world to appear in this crossover, but then again, this Zongman world contained all kinds of strange mixes. How many have you eaten? Xiao Ran asked. The demon's grin widened. How many? About a dozen, I suppose. I can't gorge myself all the time. There's competition. But you humans opening up this amusement park has given us a fine buffet. I only wonder how long we can keep coming here. Xiao Ran scanned the park and got a precise count, 32 demons in total. Not a huge number, but mixed among thousands of staff and guests, even a few dozen predators could spread panic and collapse the park's operations. He didn't particularly care about the park's bottom line. He just didn't like being looked at like prey. Enough talk. Become my food, the demon snarled, lunging with a slobbering cry. I'm going to feast. It leaped, teeth bared, saliva stringing from the corners of its mouth. Xiao Ran shook his head in disgust, then extended a single finger with a practiced motion. Whoosh! A sheet of skin and muscle vaporized from the demon. In an instant, the thing collapsed into a heap of organs and bone. The skeleton crumbled, the entrails splattered across the floor. 2 eyeballs rolled free, still oozing. Xiao Ran snapped his fingers. The grotesque pile lay still. Demons in the Demon Slayer world were notorious for their regenerative power. Even Kibutsuji Muzan had once been cut into 1,800 pieces by Yoriichi Tsugikuni. Yoriichi annihilated 1,500 of those pieces, yet the remaining 300 reformed into a head-sized clump that regrew Muzan's body. That sort of resilience was terrifying, and, Xiao Ran admitted, impressive. Of all the things about Kibutsuji Muzan, Xiao Ran found that regenerative ability the most remarkable. Xiao Ran ignored everything else. Worthless. The demon before him was nothing more than a run-of-the-mill fiend, one who had devoured a dozen people or so, barely competent among ordinary demons. He didn't have the worthless boss's remarkable regenerative power. Xiao Ran had just used Cassandra's ability to peel away his flesh, leaving only a skeletal frame and a heap of internal organs. And yet the demon hadn't died immediately. He'd even tried to reassemble himself. Xiao Ran wasn't about to give him the chance. With a cold snap of his fingers, the pile of organs on the ground combusted into ash. Only a pale skeleton remained, utterly still, dead. If this had been the worthless boss, that remaining frame might have offered a path to regeneration. For a common demon, however, it was miraculous he had clung to any life at all, when that heap of organs still existed. Now that even those were gone, nothing remained but bones. How could he live? A gentle flick of Xiao Ran's finger and the bones sank into the earth, swallowed by the ground as if they had never been. All traces of the demon were erased. Would Muzan Kibutsuji, demon king of all, have watched Xiao Ran kill that demon through his connection to it? Even setting aside how many demons Muzan controlled, would he realistically watch every single one of them die? And even if he saw, would Xiao Ran care? The worthless boss, hiding on Kosei Island, had no right to put fear into Xiao Ran. If Muzan himself dared to show up, Xiao Ran would teach him what real terror meant in minutes. He wouldn't be like Yoriichi Tsugikuni, letting him escape with a single move. You can open your eyes now. Xiao Ran reached out, took Kushikawa Shizuka's wrist, and gently moved her hand away from her ear. Huh? Is it okay now? Kushikawa Shizuka blinked and saw the killer demon was gone. Xiao Ran, where did that demon go? He left, Xiao Ran said with a small smile. She didn't question it. She was adorably airheaded and simply felt relieved the terrifying creature was gone. Let's go. Let's head back to Ran and Sonoko. Xiao Ran released her hand. Only then did Kushikawa realize they'd been clinging to each other and blushed. He took her small hand and led her upstairs. They soon reached the door of the office they'd been in earlier. Xiao Ran knocked and called, "I'm back." "Who's back?" came the voice from inside. "It's me, Ultraman Tiga." There were Ultraman shows in this world, but Tiga hadn't appeared here yet. It was the sort of offbeat answer only Xiao Ran could give. Hearing it, Ran and the others moved the table blocking the door, unlocked it, and opened the office. Kushikawa rushed in and threw herself into Senyachi's arms, sobbing with relief. "Woo, I thought I'd never see you again." Senyachi patted her friend's back, half amused, half exasperated. This was an amusement park. They were safe, she kept telling herself, but Kushikawa's wide-eyed panic had been real enough. Sonoko grabbed Xiao Ran's hand and asked, worried, "Are you okay? Did you run into any of those killer demons?" "I'm fine. I ran into one, but I shook it off," Xiao Ran answered, squeezing Sonoko's soft hand. Sonoko flushed and glanced at Ran, who had just closed the door. "Where did you find Kushikawa-sensei?" Ran asked. "In the basement, the first level," Xiao Ran said briefly, not going into details. Ran and Sonoko both looked surprised. Senyachi, who'd been comforting Kushikawa, wore a speechless expression. How does one get lost and end up in the basement? Kushikawa, cheeks still damp, mumbled and embarrassed, "I thought you guys went that way." Kushikawa's grateful look toward Xiao Ran met his, and he smiled faintly. Senyachi stepped forward. "Thanks for bringing her back, Xiao Ran. Shizuka's always been a little spacey. I'll be transferring her to Teitan High next week, so I can keep a closer eye on her." "No need to be so formal," Xiao Ran said. "By the way, did you find any clues?" Sonoko immediately pulled him closer and began excitedly presenting their recent discoveries like a proud treasure hunter. An hour later, the haunted house event ended. In the end, Xiao Ran and the rest still hadn't found the exit. That was mainly because Xiao Ran hadn't cheated. He could have solved everything in minutes, but he wanted Ran and the others to enjoy the game. As long as the demons didn't come out and spoil things, he'd let them have their fun. Winning wasn't the point. Having a good time was. When the lights came back on, Conan was there, sulking about being knocked out and eliminated early. "Conan, how was your time in jail?" Sonoko teased, delighted. Conan turned his face away in a huff. Ran tugged Sonoko, then gave Conan a worried look. The sulk melted away almost immediately. Xiao Ran chuckled and let his gaze drift over the remaining 24 tourists. 2 of them wore masks and sunglasses, nothing especially odd these days, since people dressed strangely at theme parks, but something about them stood out. Those weren't the same 2 tourists who'd entered earlier. Beneath their clothes were the bodies of demons, their mouths full of sharp teeth hidden by face coverings, their red eyes concealed by dark glasses. It was a clever disguise. Stay silent, hide the eyes, and nobody would notice you were no longer human. So that's how they blend in, Xiao Ran thought, the corner of his mouth twitching. The 2 demons were doing their best to suppress their hunger as they followed the crowd out of the park. As they scanned the crowd, one of them suddenly frowned. "Where's that idiot? Why didn't he come out?" The crowd size didn't go down, so I guess he didn't find anything worth eating. What a waste. They sneered at each other. Once their group of 30 tourists had left, the two demons quickly melted into the crowd outside and vanished. That evening, the group ate at the amusement park's restaurant. The food was made to look like organs, complete with fake blood, and it was as bizarre as it sounded. Taste-wise, it was just okay, expensive and more show than substance. But when you were out to have fun, nobody fussed over a single meal. After all, they weren't eating there every day. At night, the park felt even more alive than during the day. Being a horror-themed park, staff dressed as ghosts and monsters roamed everywhere, interacting with guests. Seeing young girls scream made the whole thing entertaining, if exhausting for the staff, as anyone who'd worked that job would tell you. At 9:30 p.m., the night parade of 100 demons began. All sorts of legendary ghosts and monsters came out and prowled the park, trying to catch people. It was one of the park's main attractions, and everyone could take part without queuing. At 11, the final fireworks began. After a half hour, the show ended and the park prepared to close. The tourists were exhausted but wore satisfied smiles, the kind of tired, happy people get after a full day of fun. Xiao Ran and his friends left the park at about 11:40 p.m. A limousine was waiting to pick them up. Ran and Sonoko flopped into the seats as soon as they got in, too tired to move. Even though they'd only gone in the afternoon, their VIP passes let them skip lines and try more attractions than many regular visitors had. That was why they looked completely worn out. When we get back, I'm showering and then going straight to bed. No one wakes me before 9 tomorrow, Sonoko mumbled, resting her head on Xiao Ran's shoulder. Are we coming back tomorrow? Xiao Ran asked. Yes, no need to get there early. Leave at 10. We can make it in time for the park lunch. We missed it today. Sonoko sat up to say it, but after 2 or 3 seconds, she slumped back into Xiao Ran's arms in a different position. He glanced at her and decided she was probably doing it on purpose, showing off. He felt a faint pang of sadness and thought of Shinichi. If Shinichi were here, something would probably happen, and he'd leave to chase the case, leaving her alone. It always felt like that when they went out. When nothing happened, Ran actually felt unaccustomed. Come to think of it, quite a few murders had actually happened today. People just hadn't noticed. Xiao Ran caught Conan leaning against a chair with a discouraged expression and wondered if it was the curse of the kid detective. They reached the villa well past midnight. Everyone was tired, so they each went to shower and then sleep. Xiao Ran wasn't particularly dirty, but he tried not to be rude, letting the others go first and taking the last shower. At one point, the kid Conan had even tried to shower with Ran. Xiao Ran had seen right through him. Just then, a drunken Muri Kogoro came back to the villa, and Xiao Ran handed Conan over without ceremony. Uncle Muri, Conan's young. Help him wash up properly, he said with a disdainful look. Conan turned red with embarrassment. He hadn't realized Xiao Ran knew his secret. He didn't resist when Kogoro dragged him away to shower. Senyachi, fresh out of the bathroom in a set of pajamas, emerged yawning. Xiao Ran, I'm done. You should hurry and go to bed too. Good night, they replied. Xiao Ran glanced at Senyachi's pajamas, thicker than usual, almost fully covering her, not the kind of outfit that matched her normally mature, sexy image. A pleasant scent of body wash wafted from the bathroom as he walked in. Xiao Ran showered quickly. He wasn't the kind of person who collected dust and dead skin the way ordinary people did. He felt nothing clinging to him thanks to a kind of biological force field. A quick rinse, a single lather of body wash, and he was done. When he came out, Conan stepped out of another bathroom with hair standing up in a bird's nest, followed by a freshly scrubbed-looking Kogoro. How was it, Conan? Xiao Ran teased, leaning over. Ha, I scrubbed this kid until he was squeaky clean, Kogoro boasted, oblivious to the joke's double meaning. Conan, however, looked mortified. He felt violated. Xiao Ran ruffled his hair, making the bird's nest worse. Under Conan's murderous glare, he said goodnight to Kogoro and went back to his room. Damn you, Xiao Ran! I'll get my revenge! Conan fumed silently as Kogoro yawned and picked him up. Come on, kid. Time for sleep. I'm beat. Conan wanted Ran One-san, not Uncle Mori, but resistance was useless. Kogoro carried him into their room and shut the door, just like the door to Conan and Ran's future, tightly closed. It was past 1 a.m. Xiao Ran, the last to shower, lay on his bed but couldn't sleep. He decided to check how many demons were actually active on Kosei Island and whether tomorrow would be peaceful. He activated his super hearing and vision, extending them across the whole island. Sounds and images flooded his mind. 10 minutes later, he switched off his super senses and sat up. He was stunned. There weren't just a lot of demons, there were innumerable them. He'd expected a strong presence, but not this. Kosei Island might as well be called Demon Island. He estimated well over 100,000 demons from the Demon Slayer world scattered across it. Even more surprising, many ghouls were active around the island as well. Their numbers weren't as high as the demons, tens of thousands rather than hundreds of thousands, but they were spread everywhere. Xiao Ran didn't detect any famous ghouls among them. As for the demons, he saw only a few lower moon members. There were no signs of the upper moon demons, and certainly none of the Demon King Kibutsuji Muzan himself. They might be hiding in the Infinity Castle, he thought, turning the possibility over in his mind. Xiao Ran thought, the Infinity Castle is Nakimi's blood demon art, a pocket dimension, so it made sense that he couldn't see or hear anything while inside it. After checking every ghoul on Kosei Island, he finally felt more at ease. This ghoul island was clearly Kibutsuji Muzan's territory. Apart from a few ghouls scavenging in remote areas, the island's largest city had been completely overrun. Of course, they didn't hunt in daylight. They came out to kill and eat only at night or on overcast days. The rumors about ghouls appearing after dark on Kosei Island weren't legends at all. They were true. Later that night, Xiao Ran turned off the lights and lay down to sleep. In the American comics world, a major battle was about to begin. Because the plot in this Deadpool and Wolverine world moved quickly, Xiao Ran actually only needed to visit twice to clear it. To be honest, if he hadn't been curious about unlocking another hidden achievement, he would have eliminated Cassandra last time and finished the world before the plot even started. His power carryover from the previous world, 2 Krypton entries stacked, had pushed him far beyond most mutants. Barring a handful of mutants who might have countermeasures, he was practically unbeatable. Of course, that assumed none of the comic mutants appeared. If they did, it would be a different story. Among the mutants in this Deadpool and Wolverine world, only Cassandra was troublesome, and he had already extracted her entry in advance. That removed the only real restraint. Clearing the world should be easy. Xiao Ran had just closed his eyes when the bedroom door opened. He sat up and blinked toward the doorway. Kushikawa Shizuka, in cartoon pajamas and looking dazed, had come in. She shut the door behind her, walked straight to the bed, lifted the covers, and lay down. Had she entered the wrong room? Xiao Ran stared in disbelief as she immediately fell asleep, curled in the bed beside him. He nudged her. Kushikawa, always a bit spacey, mumbled without opening her eyes. "Good boy, sleep, don't make trouble." She instinctively turned and hugged him. Xiao Ran was speechless. Was this some kind of test of will? Who could resist that? Certainly not him. He hugged her back and on impulse kissed her cheek. She giggled and scratched at the tingling spot. He whispered her name in her ear. Kushikawa's eyes fluttered open, hazy. "Huh, Xiao Ran, why are you in my room?" "This is my room, Sensei," he said, exasperated. She froze, looking up into the darkness. "Oh, it's not my room?" She blinked, then looked at him, embarrassed. "Xiao Ran, I'm sorry. I must have come into the wrong room." "Forget it. Since you're here, why don't you stay tonight?" Xiao Ran offered. "Really? Is that okay?" she asked, cheeks coloring. "Sure, I'll share half the bed." He sounded magnanimous. But wouldn't that be improper? She wasn't dumb. 2 adults in the same bed could lead to complications. "Don't you want to stay?" he asked. She looked down, nervous. Then he lifted her chin and leaned in. A moment later, he teased softly, "You still planning to leave?" Her cheeks flushed. She shook her head and breathed, barely audible, "No, I'm not leaving." Kushikawa wasn't the type to swoon over a handsome man, but ever since she'd met Xiao Ran, she felt pulled toward him, like a spell had been cast. Accidentally ending up in his room, only to be invited to stay, made her both nervous and secretly delighted. Being liked, especially by him, felt wonderful. Under the dim yellow lamp on the slightly rumpled bed, Kushikawa soon fell asleep, hugging him. Xiao Ran checked his watch, past 3 in the morning. There's still time, he thought. He snapped his fingers. The room plunged into darkness, and he closed his eyes and fell asleep in seconds. When he opened them again, he was already in the Voidland. His body, which had been bare a moment before, now wore a familiar set of clothes. He stepped outside. The sky was bright, and in the distance, colorful mists flickered as heavy objects thudded down, new arrivals to the Voidland. Anyone who spent much time here grew used to such sights, but since this was only Xiao Ran's second day, he watched them with curiosity. "It's time," he said to himself. He checked his watch, set to 6 a.m., and wondered whether Deadpool and the others had already left. Elsewhere in the Voidland, a car sped along the road toward Cassandra's camp. In the passenger seat sat little wolf girl. She glanced back toward the trunk, where someone unexpected was hidden. A small smile curved her lips before she turned her attention to the passing scenery. Then, "Stop the car!" "What was that?" Laura, the little wolf girl, screamed. Erica, who was driving, slammed on the brakes. The car skidded, leaving long black marks, and fishtailed to a stop. "What's wrong?" Erica asked, turning her head. "Human Torch." Laura pointed at a huge billboard ahead, its frame slanted into the ground. Painted on it was a stone-faced tough in sunglasses and a leather jacket, riding a Harley and wielding a shotgun, a Terminator-style ad. At the very top, a rope hung down. At the end of the rope, someone dangled upside down. "Jonathan?" Erica said, surprised. The three guys in the back all turned at once. "Oh, shit, is that who I think it is?" Deadpool nearly leapt out of his seat. "Hey, calm down," Gambit muttered from beside him. "That's Jonathan? You know him?" "Jonathan? What Jonathan?" Deadpool pointed at the man hanging upside down. "That's North America's #1 badass. You call him Jonathan? You're insulting him." Gambit blinked. Blade, a seat away, shrugged like he had no idea what Deadpool was on about. "That's Jonathan, our friend, the Human Torch," Erica said as she hopped out. Laura opened her door and padded over to the billboard. "Human Torch?" Deadpool sneered. "Oh, hell no. I knew it. Knew it couldn't be him." "Who are you talking about?" Gambit asked, curious. Deadpool ignored him and kept slapping the back of the front seat in irritation. Gambit looked at Blade. Blade tapped his temple and shrugged. "Don't waste time on him." At the billboard, Laura sprang up 3 meters in one effortless leap. Her claws flashed. She hooked one into a mounting eyelet on the billboard and used it for leverage. With a swift slash, she cut the rope. Human Torch fell through the air. Erica didn't bother to catch him. He hit the ground with a heavy thud and finally came to, muffled by something jammed in his mouth. Erica walked over, yanked the gag free, and shook it like it was filthy. "Gods, those bastards ambushed me," he spat, pulling himself up and rolling onto his back. "Hi, Erica," he said, grinning at her. Erica, looking thoroughly unimpressed, turned away. "Hey, don't go. At least untie me," he begged. Laura came down beside him and with another quick flick of her claws, shredded the remaining bindings. "Why didn't you just burn them?" she asked. "Laura, knew you were the best. Come here for a hug." Jonathan opened his arms like a clumsy kid. Laura only flashed her claws. Jonathan raised his hands in surrender. Okay, I won't come closer." He backed off with a cocky smile. Laura, used to his antics, cut to the point. "How did you end up hanging there?" "Those Deadpools, the spandex freaks," Jonathan swore, furious. Laura raised an eyebrow. "You mean the ones who wear spandex?" she said. "Every version of the Fantastic Four except the Thing wore spandex, and Thing wore spandex pants." Jonathan launched into a hasty defense. "I'm not like them." "You mean a bunch of Deadpools tied you up?" Laura asked bluntly. "Yes, a bunch of idiots with their brains in their asses." He kept swearing. He was genuinely pissed. "All right, you're fine," Laura nodded. She knew the Deadpools liked pranks. She'd run into them before. Hanging upside down on a billboard, though, she should have taken a picture. She almost thought that out loud. "Are you thinking something rude?" Jonathan asked suspiciously. "No, we're heading to Cassandra's camp. Want to come?" "What?" Jonathan sat bolt upright. "Are you crazy? Going there? You're gonna get killed." "We have a reason to go," Laura said. "So are you coming or not? If not, we're leaving." "Wait," Jonathan scrambled after her. "I didn't say I wasn't coming. What reason?" "If you're coming, get in the car." Laura opened the passenger door and slid into the seat. "Jonathan, there's no room here. Maybe you can ride on the roof." Gambit popped his head out of the back. "Why don't you go sit on the roof, jackass?" "Fuck you," Jonathan cursed, then spotted the three in the back and froze. He knew Gambit and Blade. The other one, "Shit! It's you, you spandex freak," he shouted when he saw Deadpool. Deadpool pointed and laughed. "He says you two are spandex freaks." The comment hung in the air. Gambit and Blade exchanged baffled, slightly offended looks. Blade shook his head at Gambit, a silent plea not to engage with a lunatic. "I'm talking about you." Jonathan shoved up into his flame form with a roar. "Come out and fight me, one-on-one." "Enough," Laura snapped, ducking her head out of the car. "Jonathan, if you won't help, at least don't get in the way." "But," Jonathan tried to protest, "he's new, not like the others." Laura gave him a flat look, then waved to Erica to drive. If Jonathan refused to help, they could handle this themselves. The car pulled away. Jonathan dashed after it. "Hey, wait! I haven't even gotten in yet," he yelled, sprinting to catch up. Cassandra's camp was a ramshackle clearing dominated by the corpse of a giant Ant-Man figure overturned in the center. Mutants and thugs milled around, celebrating something in the shadow of that grotesque landmark. Then the gate exploded inward. A car came crashing through with sickening force. One unlucky thug was hurled through the air like a rag doll. The juggernaut barreled forward, shoulder slamming the flying man into the wall. The poor bastard was flattened instantly, pinned there in a tableau that no amount of scrubbing would remove.